Hey guys, so I'm back. Drilled the holes in all 4 knives that we were doing, but I want to go over one thing real quick because this is something that a lot of people can really mess up real quick doing this. Okay, here's the, you can kind of see it, and I promise the more of these live videos, the more response I get that people are paying attention to them, I will get a better camera and everybody can be able to see this stuff a little better. But you can see I drilled this hole. Here's the pin. This is the pin material that we're going to use, and we're actually going to pin these in, okay, but just not right this second. We've got to heat treat the knife and everything before we do that, but this is what I wanted to talk about. Okay, you want to wiggle this thing back off there. You may have to hammer it off because you do put it on there with quite a bit of force. This one I'm just trying to take a screwdriver or something. I don't want to hit it with a hammer. I don't want to mar it up and actually make places in the knife. Okay, so I get it off there. Well, you've got your hole all the way through your guard. Well, you're going to deburr these holes, and we're actually going to spread these holes out before we pin those on there. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about these holes in the blade. Now, normally when you do just about anything on these blades, you'll try to countersink, or I even use, I've got things just laying around when I drill holes, and you'll go through and you'll countersink. Well, you don't want to do that on these blades. And the reason being is that gives it room, when you pin these on there, that gives this room for this to swell up on the inside of your actual finger guard. And you don't want that. You want that thing to actually sit in there just as flat as you can, because if you let this flare up right here, it'll actually start trying to spread this part out, and that's not what we want to do. We want to spread it out on this end and this end. It's going to mushroom out here and here, and you want this part to press in just as tight as you can possibly do it. So even though I've got this tape on this, and we'll take this off so we can actually work on the blade. So, but what you want to do is you want to get your leather block, you want to get your whatever you're going to do, you want to get some sandpaper. And you actually just want to make sure that when you get that sandpaper, this is just a scrap piece that I've got sitting here, but you want to sand this hole, you want to sand that burr off of it. You want to keep it completely flat. You do not want to actually take any metal off of that, because if you do, you're going to leave yourself a little bit of room for it to mushroom up underneath your finger guard, and that will cause you to have a little bit of split. Now you're going to use silver solder on the top of it, and you're not going to notice that. But if you really do it, you're going to notice it in the back of it, because you can't hammer that down tight enough that it's just going to disappear. And you also can't put any silver solder against this, because it's going to go against your handle. You're going to wind up grinding some of that off. It's just not going to work. So it's best just to get this, you want to take some time, actually sand this down, get the burrs off of it, make sure it's flat, do it on both sides. One thing about it, you use a good thing of sandpaper on your blades. Sandpaper never hurts anything. You know, you take too much metal off of something, you can't put it back. It's ruined forever. Then you just cause yourself all kinds of problems. Make sure you mark these, which one goes on which knife, especially if they're really close. Most of these I don't think are going to be real close to each other, but you can never really tell. But see, once I've already sanded that, had to hammer that off there. You watch that. Once I actually did that, now it just comes right off. The burr's all gone. Make sure you do that on every knife that you're working on. If anybody is working on this kind of knife and you need some help, leave a message, send me an email. You can send it to a whole bunch of places. I've got 2 admins on all my pages. Somebody's usually always watching it, unless it's just midnight somewhere that nobody's doing it. But that will help you do it. Like I said, always sand this, don't countersink it. If you countersink it, it's going to mess it up. So if there's any questions on this kind of knife, any kind of deal that you're doing with a finger guard, send me an email, leave it on here, leave it on the YouTube. Eventually somebody's going to show it to me, I'm going to see it, and then I can help you figure out what you're trying to do or figure out why you're having trouble. So that's that part of these knives. I'll get the rest of these kind of sanded off, and then what we're going to do next on the blade grinds, more than likely we're not going to be able to do much else on these until we get ready to lay the handles out. we're going to go ahead and do the screws for the handles, but we're not going to be able to do a whole lot to them until we actually heat treated the blade and have the silver solder on the guard and the guard actually fitted, because it all has to press up against that guard to be able to get those holes in there. But the next thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get these blades halfway ground and then heat treated. That way we can actually start putting a little stress on these holes and they'll actually start holding something. And that's going to be the next step. I'll probably lay these out, show you where the holes are going to be for the screws, and then I'll show you the hardware that I'm going to use and the hardware you can use on how to set up the handles. I might get that tonight. I'm not really sure. I've got a whole bunch of Trash Panda stuff to work on. I'm kind of doing them all at the same time. But until then, y'all be careful, and I'll see you later.